Tell me.
That's part of the psychoeducation, right, to teach them that there is self-talk going on.
So we're just introducing how it is okay to feel and to have whatever the thoughts and feelings are at this level, right? And that we're not going to judge them. That if he can acknowledge that there's grief involved in his situation, that it can be a very messy process, and that there's no linear, there's no start and beginning necessarily within an estimated given time frame where I can guarantee you, Eric, that in 3 months you're going to get better. We can't say that, right? This is your journey, Eric. It's going to be within your time frame that hopefully your notice is set in progression of where you're at, right? But this is part of the healing journey. And for those that I've worked with, using those words, healing journey, is really a hopeful invitation that I'm going to get better, whatever better means for them. So I would encourage you to use that gentle language with them, that this is part of your healing journey, okay? We can also ask Eric if he's trying to fix the situation, right? Because it wouldn't be unusual if he were trying to. And is him being so occupied with, what was it, the cars, the cars? Preventing him from feeling, right? Was it, we had somebody else, I think it was in the couple, with the miscarriages earlier on in the case scenario where she was volunteering more at church. Was that to prevent her from feeling, right? The need to stay occupied, right? And we're going to validate any possible feelings of shock and disbelief that could come in terms of helping him come to that acceptance stage within Warden of accepting those losses, right? And educate him on what that distress cycle could look like. Okay, now we're going to move to the next level. So we have the upper level. Now we're going to help him change perspective. We're going to help him not judge the feelings and the thoughts that he has and to be present. So we can start in the moment with a 3-point check with him, asking him to step back for a moment and to take a different view of what he had. You guys been to the eye doctor? Yeah, we've been to the eye doctor. Okay, so when you go to the eye doctor, they do you see 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's the tone, at least at my eye doctor. She's very sweet, she's very gentle. And so she does that for me to get a better view, right, of what I'm seeing. So that's kind of what we're doing. We are becoming those new lenses for our clients. And helping them see things from a different perspective. Or if you're more of the artistic person who likes to go to museums and you kind of look at this and you're like, I don't really get it. But if you stand back, it kind of makes sense. Or if you get closer, you start identifying some things from that. It's the same thing that we're helping them see that by having a new awareness of those feelings, of those sensations, of those thoughts, and not putting so much energy into judging himself. Well, I really shouldn't be, worried about my wife. I really shouldn't be worried about my, fertility. I'm just going to work my way. We are wasting time. And again, it comes back to that idea that suffering and pain are uncomfortable and we don't know what to do with them. So it's bringing that awareness to him that although it can be difficult, the journey entails simply feeling. Does that make sense? Simply feeling. So we do that 3-level check. So where you're at with your thoughts, where you're at with your feelings, where are you at overall with your behaviors towards people, towards yourself. Can you try to implement a little meditation on a day-to-day basis, or simply just being aware of, as you're driving, how you're feeling and what you're thinking as you're driving if you're caught in traffic? a slight exercise like that. You know, when you're sitting at the dinner table across from your wife, can you just be aware of how you feel, how you think? What is your body, how is your body reacting when you're sitting across from her? To help him raise that awareness. There's a story of one of our clinicians. How am I doing with time, Jillian?
Good, I think.
Am I doing good?
Here, well, have about, yeah. I think you're on track, Sharon.
Okay. So I want to share this story only because what this client was able to refer to his therapist was so indicative of how much judgment he was putting on not feeling what he needed to feel, because he had a history of being abandoned, so to speak, or just relationships not working out in his life, and having difficult breakups, especially after with one girlfriend they had decided on an abortion. So that kind of made him be guarded with other people and not relate to other people. So when he was starting other relationships, the breakups was like, well, I can see you as a friend, but not as, a long-term relationship because you are a little too cold, we're not really enjoying each other type of situation. And he was just so focused on being strong and being responsible and not stoic, but just his personality had changed until his eyes were open, where in therapy the therapist was helping him realize how many shoulds in his life he was regretting. I should have been this, I should have been that, I could have been this, I could have been that. That he ended with the statement of, the weight of my judgment far exceeded the purity of my emotion of pain. And it was such a powerful statement of him because it showed how much he was fighting off the negativity rather than simply being present. Do you hear what I'm saying? So much time passed before he was able to realize the importance of settling in with the uncomfortable feelings of pain. And that's a tenet of companioning, where we are being curious about exploring those relationships, where we're understanding that his dreams of being responsible and a protector weren't being materialized, at least in this particular case that I'm showing you. But getting back to Eric, could we ask him to think about what he felt or what he thought when his wife told him about the abortion? How is it that he felt? Can he name it? Can you tell me if you were angry, if you were disappointed, if it didn't bother you, right? What was that like for you? And knowing that because he comes from a background where perhaps he's not allowed to openly share, if he's there in secrecy with counseling, you kind of wonder, how open are you in your marital relationship with others? That again, this is a safe place for him, and you want to anticipate him being hesitant. So even kind of jumping to the gun and saying, you might have some hesitancy in opening up, but again, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to hear you and to validate your voice, because your voice matters in this situation. And I'll be able to handle whatever it is you're going to say. And I don't know if it's happened to you guys, but it's happened sometimes where clients want to protect you, right, from sharing everything. And sometimes you almost welcome that because they're just going to vomit on you, right? It's like, whoa, you're left draining. But it's important that we let our clients know that we can handle whatever their situations are. So with this level, again, we're helping him see that change in perspective by not judging his feelings, by not judging his thoughts, and simply being present and accepting where he's at. And that can be an introduction to that start of that healing process. Sometimes our clients confuse it by accepting the loss, that they approve the decision that took place, or whether they were coerced, including, and it has nothing to do with that, or that if they're able to acknowledge that, and I alluded to this earlier, that if they felt joy, now they're betraying the memory of the child. So there's confusion there, there's some distortion there that we present as, no, you're putting judgment into what you're feeling. Accept, simply accept that that's the feeling that you have right now. Okay? Now we move into the 3 rooms. So if you're looking at your house image, do we have a separate house image? No, it's part of the handout, right?
Yeah.
It's not a separate handout. So now we're looking at that third, let me find. We're now in the middle ground where we're looking at that cognitive flexibility room. And we're talking about how our thoughts impact our emotions. We're trying to look at these thoughts with more flexibility. This is where some of that neuroplasticity is going to take place, helping our clients understand that although we interpret situations in our life quickly and without being mindful, it is difficult for us and we can get stuck on the first negative possible outcome that we have. Do you guys have those type of clients where all they think is just everything's going to go wrong and wrong and wrong and wronger? Okay, that's a sense of lacking that neuroplasticity. Okay, not understanding that we can have flexibility in terms of where our thoughts go. Again, revisiting how it's important for them not to judge where they're at. So providing more of that psychoeducation with the grief recovery, how it involves then grieving. What would that look like for them? How sometimes we fall into that cognitive fusion, right? Where, so I woke up today, the milk wasn't where it was supposed to be, my children left the refrigerator open, I'm gonna get him, right? He's doing this again, next thing you know, I see the socks that are out of place. Oh my gosh, this kid is just driving me crazy. I'm just gonna ground him to life, and he's never gonna go out, and I'm gonna have to do these additional chores, and doesn't he understand that I am so tired, I'm so frustrated from my day's work, and one thing to the other, which leads to that cognitive fusion, where we can't see clearly. Okay, our thoughts and our feelings are so enmeshed, so convoluted, that it's not helpful. We're going to introduce that idea of being able to strategize how to live with or without children. Okay, the rewriting of that story, we're introducing that. And we're helping them continuously how to experience their emotions with that loss. How are we adjusting to those life adjustments internally and spiritually? We can't deny that there's a spiritual component to some of us, and we need to tap into what does that look like for them. As always, we're identifying their strengths, and we did allude to that via charactersurvey.com. But whatever we've already recognized, what do we recognize with Eric? What is a strength that he has?
When he's seeking help, he came in to identify that he needs something.
So he's showing courage in recognizing that he needs help, right? Could there be any strengths in terms of his heritage, of his cultural background? Maybe. Right? There's definitely a possibility of there, right? Can we assign him to start keeping some kind of journal in terms of the different perceptions that he has with his life situation, and if there's a different perception that he has that he can have? Can he consider a different outcome to his reproductive story? What would that look like for him? In our second room of the 3 rooms, and remember that they're flowing in and out of this. They may stay in one room briefly, they may jump out to another one. We're accompanying them and really walking with them through these different rooms. But in this one, we're going to help them encounter those emotional behaviors more profoundly, and this is where more of the ACT, ACT, or positive psychology interventions may take place, where we're focusing on the behavioral aspects of the emotions. I don't know how much you know about the brain. I kind of get it, but sometimes it's difficult for me to explain it to clients. But if that's part of something that you're comfortable, you can help them understand how, we have that amygdala, which does what?
It's our fear center, or it lets us know kind of that fight or flight syndrome.
Do you mind coming up here?
sorry, I teach brain stuff.
Oh, I love it.
So-
I love it. I mean, it can be very helpful, but you know, we can either react that way through the flight or flight, but then we also have where's the other one? The other one.
Cortex?
Hippocampus.
The cortex, which does what? What does the cortex do? I'm cheating here because
It's
I'm
your
looking at my
thinking
notes.
center, it's your higher functioning.
Right.
What you think through what's going on.
Exactly, exactly. So our cortex is pretty, not fixated, but it teaches us that if you go through one way, you're going to react a certain way. And what we want to educate them here is to try different ways of viewing things. Do you see how the layers kind of build one on top of the other, where in a way they overlap a little bit? Okay? Helping them be present. I don't know how hard it is for you guys, but it can be so hard for me to be present with some of the frustrations that I have. You know, having a large family, having to work. It's hard to do that. So, and I'm not throwing in there the losses that I have experienced, right? But with our clients, we have to welcome the possibility of doing that. And in offering that validation and offering that rapport with our clients, we see that little by little, they're being able to resume some of their activities, right? So now they're able to return a little bit to school, they're able to return to work, although a lot of times, because, you know, work doesn't allow you to take necessarily time off for reproductive loss, they're forced back into those situations, right? But how are they being present when those emotions come? And then if you're at work, it's going to be hard to manage that, right? So can you hold off, and then when you have a quiet moment within your work time or after work, can you sit with it? Can you journal it at that point? Can you reflect on that? Can you train your brain to experience loss in different ways?
It feels like in this capacity, like talking about this point, this is where a lot of like trauma work would come in because, sorry, I know I'm looking up there, but I'm thinking actually.
Yeah.
But because with trauma work, I work with trauma work in my other job.
Mhm.
But, you know, in order for people to be able to sit down and think about it and be present, you have to take them out of the trauma and teach them how to be in the present. So that requires like a lot of grounding skills,
Absolutely.
mindfulness, and having
Yes.
to teach those basic
Yes.
skills first before you can get to the
Yes.
prefrontal cortex thinking, that higher functioning thinking of
Right.
like, why am I feeling this way? How can I work through this? Why am I still holding on to it? You have to be able to put yourself in the moment first, which that's going to be through. like,
Absolutely. Yes, and mindfulness kicks in big time as a technique in this particular room. But we're also helping them identify the 5 emotional behaviors. For example, emotion-driven behaviors are those driven by strong emotions that help clients reduce the intensity of emotions. And what we see that Eric is doing is the drinking, right? Overt avoidance behaviors have to do with avoiding things that remind us of our losses. And in this case, we see that Eric is working more on fixing cars, right, as a way to avoid feeling. The subtle behavior avoidance has to do with behaviors that prevent full the expression and emotion that cannot be overtly avoided. Well, Eric is avoiding talking to his wife, and we see that he's also procrastinating at work. Okay. The cognitive avoidance that Eric is manifesting is that he's focusing on his wife's needs rather than on his own needs, even though he's come to us asking for help. There's also safety signals that are manifested and which prevent our brains from feeling overwhelmed. And part of what Eric is doing in that capacity is that of listening to blogcasts or is it podcasts. So we are going to utilize mindfulness in order to help him be centered, to be present. But we may also suggest having him join a support group here. Can we find a fellowship of men who have encountered similar losses? Right? Maybe it's your retreat, although you focus more on abortion, but if we find it on miscarriage, what would that look like for him? Okay? Does he have a friend that he can talk to? How can we help him identify that support person? Can he reduce the time that he's fixing cars so that he can be present with his emotions? And the next room is where we face the physical sensations. This is where we talk about this window of tolerance, which is a handout. I want you to take a look at this. And here we have on the top that hyperarousal zone, in the middle zone, which is the ideal zone, we have the optimal arousal zone, and then we have the hypoarousal zone, which has to do with the fight, fright, and the freeze response. And you have the signs that your client is in these different sections. We want them to really understand how they are reacting within that hyperarousal zone and the hypoarousal zone to get them through getting to this optimal. Again, the importance of being present with the moment, of feeling safe, of how they're soothing themselves in a healthy manner, how they're being aware of their surroundings and their boundaries. How is that being manifested? If there's physical symptoms that he's expressing, which we know that he's having, I think he mentioned, did we mention that he has back pain? No, but maybe he starts talking about back pain. Maybe he starts talking about chest pain, right? And we can think, oh my gosh, chest pain, heart attack, right? That's why that medical referral is always so important, right? Is he more tired than usual? That's not uncommon to hear in our clients. Is he going to take some energy drinks to help him with that tiredness, or is he going to do more of the alcohol drinking in order to help him with that? So inquiring about those physiological symptoms and educating that grief can have an impact, it can have a toll on our body, suffering has the toll on our body, is important. So you see how that psychoeducation aspect is very helpful when we're talking to our clients, because it tends to normalize and educate them of the expected behaviors that they're experiencing. Now we go to the rooftop. And in this rooftop is where we do that exposure to the emotion. Okay, when we are doing more of that processing the pain and the grief, we are helping with the task of adjusting to that world without the children that he's lost, where we are helping him explore how he can find meaning and feel whole again. Again, emphasize, can he reach out to help aside of coming to you? Can we invite the wife to come in? Is he at a point where we can integrate her in the therapy if it doesn't create a conflict of interest? How is his self-care at this point? Has his sleep improved? Has he began any kind of exercise? Because we know that physical activity can be so helpful. I mean, just in general, right? With our own stress, like being outside, going on a hike, for example, it can be very healing. Is he at a point where he can engage in that? Where he even can consider memorializing the child, if that's an avenue? What is that rewriting of his ending going to look like here? Is it going to be to adopt or become a foster parent? Maybe, maybe not.